There we go. Our lovely American lady that always keeps us going. So hi everyone, my name is Gemma Lee, and I have been in touch with a good few of you, I think, before, although there's a few names here I don't know. So please feel free to say hi in the chat and let us know who you are and where you're from. I will say I'm not able to read the chat and talk at the same time, so I'll catch up on that in a few minutes. So really what we want to do today is just to give you a quick overview of Erasmus Plus. I could nearly update this slide now to 2024, and just sort of what's coming up for next year. Our deadlines are in February and March. We have all that data on the slides, so just that you kind of know what's coming up and you can start to get thinking about it so that you're ready to go in the new year. I will send out these slides afterwards to anyone that's here, so feel free to take a screenshot or whatever you want, but you'll get a copy of them as well, so don't feel like you have to. Do throw any questions you have as they come up into the chat. Mark will interrupt me if they're urgent, and otherwise we'll get them at the end and we'll have a bit of a chat and we can throw it back to the whole group then. So what's Erasmus all about? I think a lot of people still associate the word with kind of universities and students going off on a year abroad and this kind of thing, but it is so much bigger than that. It covers a wide range of sectors. It was relaunched in 2021 and it will come around again in 2028. So it kind of keeps taking on slightly different versions and slightly different iterations every time when it's updated. So here in Leargus, we actually look after 5 different sectors. Now, I'm going to talk to you today about the adult education sector, but in Leargus, we also look after schools education, vocational education, youth and sport. So if any of you are working across different sectors, or if you're not sure what sector you might want to apply under, have a chat with us. We can tease that all out and we can try and figure that out with you. I know the most common one that people get mixed up, especially in Ireland, is sort of the adult ed and the vocational ed, because sometimes you might be doing courses that might cross a little bit over both. What we would generally say is that the adult education is anything that's non-vocational. So it's almost a sort of a definition by exception. But basically, if the education is to do with the world of work, skills for a particular workplace, that kind of thing, that would come under vocational. Whereas anything else, something that's more sort of for the benefit of the adult themselves. So whether it's personal development, things like literacy, numeracy, but also things like kind of social inclusion, civic engagement, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if it's for the person themselves, then it kind of comes under adult ed. Whereas if it's more for somebody in the workplace, it's probably more likely to be vocational. And if you're still not sure about that, we can chat about that at the end and we can see what kind of work you might do and where it might fit best. But I think kind of the best way to sum this up really is to give you an example of some of the projects that we've supported this year. And actually last year, I'm really excited to update this slide with all the 2023 ones because we've had some fab new projects coming in since. But this was the list of 2022. So you can see a huge variety there. So we've had kind of NGO type organizations. The Living Commons is a kind of an artist collective. Culture looks after migrants in the Northeast. We have ADHD Ireland looking after adults with ADHD. We have a few of the different local development companies and local partnership projects. We had F6S, which is a kind of entrepreneurship innovation space. INR, the Irish Network Against Racism. Some of the universities you'll see there. The Ballymun Job Centre supporting people who are unemployed. St. Joseph Shankill supporting adults with dementia and also the volunteers and the families that look after them. And then we work with a number of the different ETBs across all of Ireland. So that's just a brief example. I know we have quite a wide range of organizations on the call today as well, which is really exciting. And again, you seem to be across the kind of the more formal sectors and the non-formal and the everything in between. So it's great to have you all here. So what's it all about? I always stick up this slide. These are just the kind of 4 overarching sort of priorities that come into the program. And this is not that you necessarily would need to do a project in any one of these topics, but it's something you should always keep in the back of your head if you're working on this kind of stuff and working on Erasmus projects. So we have a big focus on inclusion and diversity. We like to see that all our projects are as inclusive as possible and bring lots of different kinds of people on board. We have a focus on digital transformation, so making sure that people have the digital skills that they need to work in the modern environment. Things like the environment and the fight against climate change. So we're seeing a lot more of that, these kind of environmental projects. And actually something interesting that has happened in the last kind of iteration of for the 2024 program that's come in is there's a way more strong focus on green travel. So obviously, you know, there's a bit of an elephant in the room. We're talking about environment, but we're also offering you projects to fly around Europe. So we're trying to look at how we can do more green travel. It is a bit harder for us as an island nation than it is for people on the continent, but we're trying to look as to how we can support that a bit more. And then the other piece is this whole bit about participation, democratic life, civic engagement. I think especially next year with the European elections coming up, that's going to be a really interesting one, and how we can support adult learners and adult members of our community to really engage with the European elections and to sort of see where they can have their voices heard. So I think that's going to be an interesting theme in some of our projects next year. So I'm going to get into a little bit of the jargon. It's hard to avoid the jargon when we get into Erasmus Plus. Unfortunately, it is European funding. But myself and Mark, we are literally here to try and help you, support you with this, and explain any of these terms and things that you may not understand. So the very first thing you need to learn is this Key Action 1 and Key Action 2. They're two different separate strands of funding. We're going to talk about both of them today. So the Key Action 1 is all about this word mobility, which I always think is kind of a funny word, but basically it means movement. It's your staff and your volunteers and also your learners or participants traveling, moving somewhere around Europe to meet other people and learn from them. So it's all about this kind of European engagement. Key Action 2 then, again, it's a big European focus, of course, but it's more about actually working in partnership, working together with another organization. Whereas the Key Action 1 is more kind of sending people. It's more kind of a one-way piece. So let's have a look at the Key Action 1 first. This is all from where people get started, if any of you are quite new to this. I know there's a few familiar names on the call here, so this is probably, you're not completely new to this, but it's still good to have a refresh. So in terms of your staff, and I think it's really important to know that your staff can also include volunteers. So if that's the kind of organization you work in, maybe you have a voluntary board, maybe you have volunteers running programs for you, they can be included in this as well. So we can offer funding for your staff to go off on courses and training across Europe. This is often a really good kind of starting point for organizations. So if you've never done an Erasmus project before, you're not quite sure where to start, this is quite a nice one, because you send somebody off to a training course and they not just learn whatever is on the agenda for that course, but they also tend to meet, maybe 20 other people from around Europe and make those networks and connections, which might lead to another project or a bigger project in future years. So a really nice starter one. There's also some organizations that just do this every year and that's as far as they go. They don't go looking into the other activities. That's absolutely fine. There's then also job shadowing. So that's if you find another organization somewhere in Europe that you think is doing really interesting work and you'd like to go and spend some time with them and see how they're doing it. So you can kind of get under the skin of an organization a little bit more with job shadowing, because you're actually spending time there in the building, seeing not just what's on the curriculum, but also sort of that engagement they have with the service users and with the learners, and how they come in, how they support them, how they interact, the whole culture of the organization. So that's a really nice opportunity as well. And then another one that we have is called invited experts. So that is kind of like where you're having an international experience, but you're having it here in Ireland. So you're bringing that international expert to your organization. So again, this can be quite a nice one. It gives you that opportunity to bring some kind of expertise to maybe run a workshop, run a training program for your staff. We often see these done in kind of conjunction, so you can pick and mix all these different activities. So sometimes people might send 2 or 3 staff over on a training course, and then maybe 6 or 8 months later, they might bring that trainer back to Ireland to run a workshop for the broader staff. So it means that everyone in your organization gets to have the impact, even if they weren't the ones to travel. That said, it can be a standalone activity as well. But yeah, we often see people doing this as a kind of a pick and mix type situation. Mark, has anybody lost in the chat just yet? Are we okay? You're on mute, Mark.
What would I do without you, Gemma? Yeah, no, introductions mainly though. Paul had a question there just regards to common values. Is there a crossover with that and the notion of commons or common law, which I don't think there is.
No, I don't think so.
It's
We can direct you to where there's much more detail in the program guide. We can direct you to that, and it's more about sort of common European values, I suppose. Yeah. But we can direct you. There's a whole paragraph about it. I'm just kind of summarizing it here. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. That's a good sign. There's not too many hard questions yet. We haven't lost you all yet.
Yes.
On a Monday afternoon. Okay, so let's have a look then at the opportunities for your learners and your participants. So again, this depends on your organization, whether they're learners, their services, their participants, whatever it is you call the people that you work with. But really the opportunities here are quite exciting, where they can go and visit their peers in other European countries to learn and share from each other. It's quite broad in terms of what they can actually do, in terms of the activities they can do. So we've seen things like kind of peer learning, where you're taking part in the programs in the other country, volunteering together, so getting out into the community, doing work-based learning, It really depends, and it's very much up to you in terms of your own target group and the people you work with and what makes sense. And then there's a few different ways of going about this. So short-term and long-term options, there's options to go for as a group and options to go as individuals. So if that's something that interests you, we can chat about that a bit more. I could stick up 6 slides about it here, but I think I might lose you. So this is just a quick summary. But yeah, I think it's a really exciting one. This only came in 2021, so we haven't seen a huge amount of it happening just yet, but there's definitely a few have happened this year and a whole lot of plan for next year. So we're going to start getting all those stories back, and I think it's a really exciting one. We've just recently published a study from the vocational sector, which is sort of looking at the impact of these opportunities for the learners in the vocational sector. And what has come out of it has just been incredible. It was particularly looking at those kind of transversal skills, those kind of soft skills. So the vocational learners would be going maybe to do a work placement as part of their training course, but actually what they learn in terms of their own self-confidence and their own independence and all of that stuff is huge. So I think we can transfer a lot of that over to the adult ed sector. And I think these could just be really life-changing opportunities for people. The other bits and pieces that I wanted to mention then as well is that there is huge support there for inclusion. So if you work with people with fewer opportunities, we have a particular definition of that, but it is quite broad. So it includes everything from disabilities to people of a migrant background, people from rural areas. Yeah, there's a huge big list of different types of fewer opportunities. But basically, if you have identified a barrier for someone taking part, and there's something that we can do to remove that barrier, we will do our best to work with you to support that. So as soon as you kind of tell us that your participants have fewer opportunities, you automatically get an extra €125. That's gone up from 100 this year to 125 next year. That just kind of acknowledges you're going to spend a bit more time supporting them. But then you can also, request accompanying people if they need someone to travel with them. Maybe they have a disability, they need a personal assistant. Maybe they need a sign language interpreter, whatever that thing is. And then you can also just put in for practical support. So that could be anything, if someone maybe has a migrant background, needs to apply for visas, things like that. Whatever those barriers are that you can see to them people traveling, you can try and put in for that, and you can chat to us about all of that. Another thing that you can request is for preparatory visits. So if you're kind of going, okay, this sounds like a cool idea, but I'm a bit nervous about taking a group of learners off to a foreign country, you can apply to do a preparatory visit first. That's where you send up to 3 of your staff in advance. You check the place out, you meet the host partners, you suss out how to get from the airport to the hostel, all of these kind of things. You figure that all out without having the whole group with you. And then you can go back feeling an awful lot more confident for the main trip itself. So here's the list of where you can go. So there's a huge range of countries on there. There's all the EU member states as well as 6 others as well. I will say I know a lot of people were quite disappointed after Brexit that the UK is no longer on that list. But to be honest, we're a little bit spoilt in that a lot of different programs that happen across Europe, English does tend to be the common language. So people are going on training courses. It's not that difficult to find a training course that's run through English, because it is quite often the kind of common language, even in a lot of different countries where it wouldn't be the native language. That said, we also have tools to help you learn a new language and learn the basics of a new language for the country that you're going to. If you want to get some of the basics before you travel, we have online tools that we can help you with that as well. So in terms of the actual money, now again, I could spend an hour talking about this, but it is all in a book called The Program Guide, which we'll give you the link to at the end. But basically there's funding for your organization just to cover the general kind of admin costs of running these kind of projects. There's funding for each individual that travels. So there's a kind of a per person per day rate that covers your food and accommodation. That varies depending on the cost of living in the country you're traveling to. There's the travel cost itself. So these have all gone up for 2024, which is really fantastic, because they were starting to be a little bit tight with the cost of living going up and the cost of travel going up. So these rates have all gone up. The preparatory visits has gone up significantly as well. And then, of course, the inclusion support. So as I said, there's a sort of a rate just per person to kind of support you to include that person. But then there's also those real costs, if you have some real costs that you need to claim for as well. So in general, we would see, I have an example project, a couple of projects here. In general, we would see that the funding would more or less break even. Sometimes people might want to go to a training course that is really, really expensive, and the rates that we cover for the fees mightn't cover it. So we'll pay for the travel and the accommodation, but they may have to top up the training course fees. Sometimes you might want to stay in that extra fancy hotel. That's up to you and your organization. But in general, what we offer does kind of balance out. It does generally break even in terms of these trips. So here's just an example. If you were taking 5 learners off to France, and you can see that we kind of build in the actual event is for 3 days, but then you travel for 1 day either side. So you get 5 days worth of funding for that. So you can see there's different rates there for the organization, the travel. The individual support is slightly different for the staff and the learners themselves, but that comes out at about 8,500, which is, you know, decent, and again should generally kind of break even for that type of a group. You'll see then when we have the staff one going to Turkey, so the travel is higher because it's further away, but then the individual support is lower because the cost of living in Turkey is lower. So you don't need to know about all these rates. Basically what happens is you go into the application form, you talk about what are your needs, your challenges, what are you hoping to get out of these trips, and then you put in where you want to go, how many people are going, how long they're going for, and all of the funding tots up for you. So the only rates you actually need to know about are those real costs, if you have some real inclusion costs. Everything else just kind of auto-calculates for you and gives you a figure at the end. They are all available in that program guide as well. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for 2 minutes before I move on to the key action 2 stuff, just in case anybody has anything here. Nothing new in the chat. Okay.
Nope.
But it's great to see the variety of organizations that's here, actually. Yeah.
I know, like on a Monday afternoon, 21 participants. I think we're doing well.
Yeah, yeah. So what does that sound like for people, that those key action 1 projects? Does that sound like something that might be of interest to you?
And you can come off microphone there if you want to kind of make a comment or ask a question. It doesn't have to be in the chat in between presentations.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my name is Rose. I work with refugees and asylum seekers, and we have a recruitment agency as well for refugees. And for me, it would be really interesting because I had a lot of questions from people coming to me for Erasmus Plus, going to various countries, but I need to learn a bit more about it first. So that's why I came here. And also, I think maybe a preparatory meeting or something to start with might be an idea to go and see what people are proposing. And so, yeah, that's already very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great, Ruth. And yeah, so we would work with organizations rather than individuals. So it would always be that the organization would put the application in through us, and then we would support the individuals to take part. So that would be the way to go.
Yeah,
but it's great that there's interest. Absolutely.
Hi, Gemma. Carolina Shaughnessy here from Reskill Ireland. Sorry, my camera, there's a problem with it at the moment.
That's all right, Caroline.
My bandwidth. I'm just wondering, you know, when it comes to the funding, does the company have to make the payment first and then they're reimbursed after the visit? Or how is that whole process, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, really good question, Caroline. So generally what you apply for is you apply for a project which might include a few different trips. So it might be a staff going to a training course and a group of learners and to something else. So you apply for that as a start to finish project with a few different bits and pieces in it. What you generally will get is you'll get a lump sum payment at the very beginning as soon as you signed your contract. It is usually at 70% at the beginning and then 30% at the end after your final report. Sometimes depending on risk factors and financial analysis and various bits and pieces that our operations team look after, sometimes you might be split. So it might be 35, and then 30%. But either way, you get some kind of a lump sum at the beginning to get you started. And then you'll either get an interim repayment in the middle, or you'll wait till the very end and you'll get a final payment after your final report is submitted and providing everything is gone well. So yeah, we don't leave you stuck. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
It can be the barrier, like between someone getting involved and not getting involved.
It is, and I know absolutely, like for a lot of the other kinds of European funding, a lot of them require you to match the funding and various things like that. There's none of that in Erasmus Plus. You may have to put a little bit of, you know, staff costs or overhead costs or something towards just generally running the project, but in general, it does sort of cover the real costs for it all. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, I'm going to kick on to the key action 2 stuff. So as I said at the beginning, these are 2 different strands of funding. So this is completely separate now to what we've just talked about. So this is a whole other type of of funding you can apply for. So this is partnership funding. This is where you find other organizations in Europe that you want to work with to maybe develop something together, to create a concept, to develop a training program, or just to share best practice. But it very much is about working in that partnership. When you put in the application form for this funding, you have to put the names of you and your partners. For the Key Action 1, it's just you. It's all about you. It's a little bit more selfish, I suppose. It's about what your organization wants to get out of it. For these partnership projects, it's that real partnership is what it's all about. So there's two different types. There's small scale and then there's cooperation partnerships, which are the bigger ones. In small scale partnerships, they can last between 6 and 24 months. It's two partners, so that's yourselves and one other. So it is only potentially one other partner. You can have more than that, but that's the minimum. It's done on a lump sum funding model. So completely different to what we talked about earlier. With these ones, you apply for a lump sum of either 30,000 or 60,000, and then you build the budget within that. So we'll show some examples of activities and stuff now in a few minutes, but basically you kind of look at what you're hoping to do, what you're hoping to achieve, you build up a budget and you create it within that. You can see that flexibility is so important. It really is. People kind of sometimes go, this sounds too good to be true, but it actually is as flexible as that. And then the other side of these small scale ones is that they can be both national and transnational. So if you wanted to run an activity in Ireland and an activity in your partner country in, I don't know, Portugal, Spain, wherever it is, you can both run kind of national activities. And then as organizations, you can share the results together. It doesn't always have to be about traveling and moving abroad with these small scale ones. Then the bigger version of that are the cooperation partnerships. These last between 1 and 3 years. They have a minimum of 3 partners, so that's yourselves and 2 others. Again, it's all about sort of different types of activities, creating something, achieving objectives, achieving results. But we would like to see with these cooperation partnerships a bigger kind of an impact, whether it's on your own organizations or on the broader sector. So the small scale partnerships, it can be something quite as simple as an exchange of practice. With these cooperation partnerships, they're much bigger funding, as you'll see here in a second. So we do expect them to have that kind of bigger impact on the sector. So those partnerships, they can be, for the lump sums, they can be 120, 250 or 400,000. So they're big, big projects. Now, I will say these are somewhat competitive. Certainly for the adult education sector, I would probably only be able to fund 2 or 3 of these projects next year. We do sometimes have extra money left over at the end of the year, and we do our magic and we try to support some extra ones. But yeah, they're a little bit more competitive just because the funding for them is so big. But that said, we have some fantastic ones that have come through. And if you have a good idea, I think it's absolutely worth putting in that application. Here's some examples of what you can do, because I know it can sound a little bit abstract when we just be like partnership. But the kind of things we see people doing is maybe they want to develop like a training program together. So they might pilot the training program in a few different countries. They might draw up a training manual. They might create a website with some kind of online learning tools. They might have a conference or a seminar where they then teach everyone in the local community about what they've learned, what they've developed, and kind of share the results of that, whatever it is. They might be just, if it's a small scale partnership, especially those small little 30,000 euro projects, it might just be a case of sharing practice and doing a site visit, visiting one another, seeing how things work. You don't necessarily have to create something if it's a small scale partnership. And then people put in kind of training events, sort of seminars and webinars and all that kind of stuff. And then meetings and project management. So the general bits and pieces of running the project. So you see all these, and as I said, you build your own budget. So you kind of think of what you want to do and you create that and you add it all together. Here are some kind of things we often see people apply for. So if they are visiting each other, they'll put in for travel and subsistence. They might need some kind of special equipment. If they're publishing something, they might need it. They might create all the content, but they might hire in a special, editor to make it all pretty and accessible and all of that kind of stuff. You might want to translate it if you're working in a few different countries to have it in the different languages. You might create a website, social media pages, those kind of things to help share what you're doing. You can put in for staff costs on these, which is a nice thing. And I suppose it's something that it doesn't exist under Key Action 1. So it's nice that you can put a few hours towards that as well. And then your kind of general admin costs. So here's an example of one of our kind of small projects. I probably should put in a sample of one of the big ones as well. But I feel like people on these calls tend to be quite new and maybe you're not likely to apply for 400,000 euro projects. So this is an example of a 30,000. But it was a really nice one where it was just two organizations sharing best practice. They were both going to develop a training course and deliver that to the other organization's staff and learners. So one had more expertise on kind of soft skills and personal development. One had more expertise on kind of hard skills and IT skills and things like that. So they're both running training courses for each other. They were going to print up those training courses and have those as a kind of a manual that they could then use after the end of the project as well. You can see that they had an awareness campaign. So that was just to literally recruit people. As far as I recall, yeah, this one is a kind of an organization that works with migrants. So that awareness campaign was going to be done in lots of different languages to try and reach people from different backgrounds in the community. And then they had kind of a budget put in for dissemination, documentation. So how they were going to write it all up and share it all afterwards. You can see that was a really simple project, two organizations, 15 months. I think it is coming to an end very, very soon. And that was a 30,000 euro budget. So that's what those kind of partnership projects can look like. The first question people ask me, and it's probably already there in the chat, is how do we find partners? How do we get started with all of these? And I suppose even for the key action one, you know, if you're looking for training courses and looking for people to job shadow with. So I have two links here, and then I'll hand you over to Mark because he's the expert on all of this. But when you get these slides, these will be links that you can click. So we do have a section on our website where we list all of the current projects. So you can see who in Ireland is already involved. You can be inspired by that. You can reach out to them. You can, you know, check it out. All this stuff is publicly available. And then you can also see something similar for all of Europe. So there is a list there of every project across Europe that has been funded. And you can filter that. So, you know, if you're an organization working in entrepreneurship, working with migrants, working with literacy, whatever your topic is, you can kind of filter that. And again, you can be inspired by those, but you can also potentially reach out to those people. But what I'm then going to hand you over to is my colleague Mark, who's here on the call. Mark looks after the Apale platform, and he has some other great hints and tips for you on all of this.
Thank you so much, Gemma. Gemma, we're actually doing quite well on the questions in the chat. There hasn't been that many. And now Paul had to head off there, but he did have a question where, in regards to how Northern Ireland is classified with regards to Erasmus Plus. But I've spoken to Paul about that. But yeah, he's gone off there.
Northern Ireland is considered part of the UK, unfortunately. So
yeah. Yeah. I suppose one of the questions I had when I was doing my application before I was here was the 30 and 40,000. Like, what I didn't understand before I went to my first info session was, does it have to be 30 or 60,000? Which of course the answer is yes.
It is for those partnership projects, yeah. So what we would generally say to people is do up your budget, see what it comes out as. And then if you need to round up a bit or round down a bit, maybe add some extra participants or, you know, remove an event, scale up or scale down to meet the rates. You can also, of course, co-fund it. So if you come out and you go, well, actually, we're going to need 35 or 38, you can apply for the 30 and you can add the 8 to it if that's possible within your organization. But we only sign off on the lump sums. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to cover this side of things, which is the questions we normally expect, which is how do I find partners? How do I find what I might cover, what might inspire me or interest me, which Gemma covered slightly there at the end. And the answer to all of those questions is Apale. Keep it very simple. So Apale is the electronic platform for adult learning in Europe, and it is essentially an online community of people like ourselves spread out all across Europe, covering every aspect of adult learning, which would be adult education and vocational educational training. And it is based on, I'm going to go through now and show you the site on it there. You can use this site without being registered, but I'll be honest, you can't engage on the site without being registered, and it is very quick and easy to sign up. If you're not already a member on it, or if you haven't been on it in a while, you can first just go to log in if you want to see if you already have credentials or if you're registered there. But if not, just go to create account, and there is literally 2 more buttons to press, and then just a regular kind of your email, your name, and those kind of questions. Simply just by kind of interacting on the site and having it somewhere that you go to even twice a week for 15 to 20 minutes, reading the articles, you get to see who's doing what. You get to see what projects people are involved in. You get to kind of listen to the podcasts and see the newscasts, and it's not overwhelming. You can kind of take it in nice bite-sized pieces. But it is really nice to see who is up to what, because you may not know exactly what you want to do a project on, or how you might engage with people. So literally, I would recommend, before there's a deadline like next week, I suggest people go on and start just engaging with and kind of consuming bits and pieces on the site. So first thing to do with that is to register. And of course, on these slides, there will be links on this. So to the Pale kind of homepage for creating an account is just linked there at the bottom. So I'm going to go through very quickly the site. I would say once you are registered, it's really important to fill in your profile. And that is like, put a picture up there, put in your details saying who you are, what you do, your organization's website, the type of organization, because this is what people are going to see. You may very well be on there looking for what you want, but no one's going to want to engage with you. If you want to find a good partner for a project, you have to be a good partner. I always liken it to kind of when someone has a blank dating profile, immediate kind of red flag. So put in as much information there as you can with regards to your own personal profile. And then you'd be moving on to listing your organization. It's always good that if you've got a number of people in your organization who are using the platform, they just check first to see if the organization is already listed. For some people, the organizations have been listed well in the past, and you may not have access to that. I can obviously just help you out with that and change who is administering your organization. But once you've filled in your details there, the next thing to do then is to start looking through the website at things like the partner search. Now, as I said, you can go and do these things and be very targeted with it, but I would suggest kind of engaging with the platform itself. But registering your organization is the first part. I will say that when you register your organization, simply by the fact that we are on the island of Ireland, people are going to be interested in you and what you're doing. As Gemma said, like kind of with an awful lot of stuff being done primarily through English, we are the #1 English speaking country in, that are covered with Erasmus Plus at the moment. So, and also it's Ireland, so everyone wants to work with us. So once you register your organization, you will have people reaching out to you about their own projects and their own partnerships they're looking for. You can, of course, then make a partner finding announcement saying what you're looking for, what you want to cover, and maybe you have specific countries and topics and themes that you want, and you can have that posted up in your announcement, and then people can contact you through your announcement. And then of course you can just do a search, which is broken down by language, by country, and by themes and topics as well, so you can go and see who's looking for what at the moment. But also just by reading articles and reading blog posts and news pieces and seeing what events are being hosted throughout Europe, you can literally just click on someone's profile and drop them a message. They may not know that they're looking for a partner until you come along and start engaging with them. When you're on there and you've set up all of that, then you can start kind of collaborating and start mixing with people. And the headings on the top of this website are really, really simple. The collaborate, I think, is a really good one, because that's where you'll go to engage in discussions. You can also have a group set up, either a private group or a public group, which can be for yourself and for your own body, your own organization. And that can be under community of practice or collaborative spaces. The partner search function is there as well. And all the organizations are listed in there as well. Now, the great thing about Apali is that post-COVID, it has really been growing and people getting more and more involved, particularly with the likes of the KA1, the mobility projects, where people are a lot more open to the travel now and to the engagement side of things. So even in the last 3 months, we've gone from 134,500 members on a Pale to it going to, we're just coming up on 139,000 now, so a jump of 5,000 members. And then with the Irish kind of community on there, we've gone from just barely over 2,000 to 2,300. And of course, there's so much in terms of blog posts and resources. Also, if an article is posted in another language, you can just with a click of a button translate that to English or whatever language kind of suits you best for reading about them there. So we'll move on from collaboration to contributions. And for me, this is really, really important. And it also fits in with the projects that you're going to be running, because dissemination is part of those. You want to be putting out the findings of your projects when you apply for your K2, let's say, you're asked how you're going to put out the findings of your project, of the work that you've done. And with the adult ed, you'll normally see people are listing a Pale. So it's good to be posting up things on there. It might be as simple as like a 500-word blog post, just kind of introducing yourselves. You may have an event coming up. You may have a bit of news that you want to share. It is a real good place to kind of blow your own trumpet and just let people know what you're doing. Trust me, people are interested, but it goes as well to building this profile of engagement that makes people feel, lets people know exactly what you're doing and why they should want to engage with you. So the contribution thing, I think it's really important to maybe contribute something, I would say once a week, but once every 2 weeks would be fairly minimal across a bigger organization anyway. I think I covered everything on that. Oh, this is one of my favorite things on it because I'm looking at what I personally want to learn for 2024. So this is where the resource center and newscasts are, where you can go and look at what courses are being offered. Now, these may be courses that you want to apply to do through the KA1. It's really handy to kind of see stuff put up there. But for your own kind of personal development, you can go and look through courses that can take 2 hours for you to do yourself, or you can take 5 hours, it can take 5 weeks. The course catalog, the OERs and the MOOCs on there are fantastic. There's also a great MOOC for the applications that's listed. Jem, I think you have that in your Linktree, which, by the way, one of the greatest resources is Gemma's Linktree, by the way. You can almost do away with half the websites just to just use that.
It's on the last slide, don't worry.
It's on the last slide. I meant when I was starting out, it was such a great help to me. So the learning side of things for yourself, I think it's really important as educators and education professionals that we continue with that learning ourselves. If that's the message we're pushing, then we have to be involved in it just, for ourselves. So the learning side of that is really important. The next slide then is the last slide. I have set up a group on there which is just for members of the Irish adult learning professionals. So that it's members who are in Ireland who are working. My contact details are there, and most importantly on this, I think, is that I have a workshop happening on the 9th of January. It's a couple of hours, and it's how to use the website, how to use the website really successfully, and basically an expansion on what I've just gone in there. So any questions? I think that's the quickest I've ever done that, Gemma. I'm quite impressed with myself.
No, but I think that's what we're kind of aiming for today. It's a quick overview, and here's what's available, and then you can go and you can have a route and have a look at stuff later on. Samantha's hand is up.
Hi, Mark. Hey. I'm one of those people who's registered and has my photo up there, but I've never actually used it for dissemination purposes. So I'd be really keen to join your workshop in January if you can share the link. Thank you.
Yeah, it's on that there, and it's on the Lurgus Eventbrite as well. And yeah, as soon as you start kind of getting your organization listed and posting a couple of bits and pieces, it's amazing. I kind of liken it to when you're in the playground, your first day in school. It can be a real struggle to go over and engage with people. But once you do, you start kind of finding your tribe and finding who has common interests and common values, which is really important. So once you make the effort, it kind of goes from there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark.
No problem. I thought that was another hand up, but it's actually my massive cursor.
So what are people thinking? I probably should have paused after the key action 2. I handed straight over to Mark. Does those key action 2 projects catch anybody's interest in terms of working in partnership? Is that something that might be of interest to some of you?
Yes, I was open to do
Yeah. For
Michael,
me,
go ahead
again,
there.
who, sorry?
Yeah, if you pop up a hand, we'll call on you as we do. It might be the easier way to
It's a
do it.
great sign if we have 3 talking at once. Let's go to Michael first.
Yeah, we're hoping to do a KA2 this year, but I know it's in the vocational field, but I think the idea is the same for both of them.
It'll be very similar. Yeah. So it's just to be sure on which side you're applying under, but we can put you in touch. Florence is looking after the K2 vocational site, so we can put you in touch and give you Florence's details if you need to check in with her for sure.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Because we do a lot of KA1s in the vocational area at the moment. We're sending 140 students away next month on placements abroad. So, okay, thanks.
Brilliant.
You're a poster child for it, Michael. I think it is really important, though. I think one of the things is just making sure that you choose the correct sector to apply under, because you can fall down on that if you're not particularly serious, particularly when you have like several options within kind of, your learner body. Just choose the one that you're going for, and just make sure that's all clear.
Yeah, and there's nothing to say you can't apply under two sectors. So we do see that, especially from the likes of the ETBs and stuff, would often apply. They may have some vocational projects happening and some adult ed projects happening at the same time, and that's absolutely fine as long as you're clear who's who. Yeah. Rose, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Rose actually.
Rose, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that was actually my question, because we work on different fields. We work with refugees and migrants, but we also have to educate employers and then also other organizations working with them. So there are different fields. So I think it's quite important that we check out everything as well, and see what's happening. I'm very keen to see what's happening in Europe, especially on the migration field, because there's horrible things happening. And I think we need to come together as European organizations and create actions. So that, therefore, key action 2, I think, would be a good one. I just have one question, because I was, let's say, bombarded into chairpersonship of the Africa Solidarity Center, who has been working with Erasmus Plus for a long time. And I was in, straight after, I had to go to a meeting in Brussels, chair a meeting, and with loads of partners from the Erasmus Plus project that they were running, and that was some kind of research. But anyway, they have to write a report, and I was just wondering, there was talk about the key action 3. Does that exist?
There is a key action 3,
Yeah.
so that runs through Brussels. We don't manage it here in Ireland.
Oh, okay, that's why. Okay.
So there is, and there's some other really exciting opportunities through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am not the expert on them, so I am, but certainly there's loads of information online.
Okay, would I find that as well on ePail or ePale or whatever you call it?
There's information there on the K3 stuff there as well. So
Okay.
if you want to drop me a mail, I can point you directly to it. But I always find it's best to just go explore, and
I will explore it. Yeah. That's fine.
And we have the link to the program guide here. So the program guide covers all of the actions and all of the different deadlines and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably your best place to get the most up-to-date information. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Camilla. I see your comment. Yeah, no, there should be a few new KA3s coming up in the new year as well. Let me put up these last few slides just so you can see what else I had before we go back to any last questions. So these are the deadlines. So key action 1 is coming up on the 20th of February. I always put up the time, because when you read that program guide, it's going to say noon, but noon is Brussels time. And I absolutely don't want someone to get caught out and be an hour late and miss the deadline. It has happened. And then for key action 2, it's 2 weeks later on the 5th of March. So there is plenty of time, in the new year to get those projects and get those application forms together. We have a bunch of other trainings coming up. So again, these are all hyperlinks. Once I send these out, you can click on them. So we have a few different, there's another info session. It's going to be more or less the same as this. So unless you want to come again, it's probably going to be the same, but feel free to send your colleagues. But we also have some application clinics, which is where we literally bring up the application form on screen. We get our finance colleagues to come along. We go through kind of hints and tips and all of that. We've also got some drop-in support sessions sort of a week or 2 before the deadline. So if you have any last-minute panics or questions, you can just come to these drop-in sessions. You can also send me an email and I'll reply, but some people like to just have the option to pop into the drop-in session. Also, just to let you know, we are running this event in Athlone in February. It's called Lean on Learning. But basically, it's a 3-day training event about those learner mobilities options. It's an international event. It just happens to be on here in Ireland, but it is an international event. So as well as all of the training content, you will also get to meet 20 or 30 people from other countries. I think we have 10 or 12 different countries signed up. So the whole concept is that you bring along one staff member, one educator, and one learner, basically. And you kind of, together you learn how to co-create. How is a learner mobility project going to work in your organization? So it's a really unique concept. I think it's something really interesting. We still have a few places left for Irish participants. So do have a look at that and do think about signing up for that. It's going to close, that deadline is going to close very early in January, around the 10th or 11th. So have a think about that. And then the final link there is Mark's EPALE event on the 9th of January. And from what it tells me, it's going to be a super practical kind of, here's how to do this and how to really engage. So I think that would be a useful one as well. So your next steps, if you have never applied for anything, any European funding before, you'll need to get an organizational ID number. There's a link here that tells you how to do it. It's not very complicated. You instantly, once you register, you get an ID number, and then our operations team will reach out to you looking for a few bits of paperwork to kind of back it up. So there's plenty of time to get all of that done. But you do need that ID number to start working on the application form. The next thing is the program guide. Now, I always do this with a warning that when you download it, it is 400 pages. You don't need to read 400 pages. Don't get a fright. Go to the section you want. So go to mobility of adult learners, or go to small scale partnerships, or go to key action 3 if the people want to look about that. So you just go to the section you need. There's all kinds of other interesting stuff in there at the beginning, all about the priorities and the objectives and all of that stuff. But don't feel like you need to sit down for 3 days and read 400 pages. Don't worry about it. And then the last thing is the link there for the application forms. So actually these applications have all gone live already, which is amazing. So you can go in from now and you can start messing about with the application form, see what the questions are. You can download a PDF if you're the kind of person that likes to actually print something out and scribble on it. I know some people find that way more useful than working on an online platform. I do always say to people, keep a Word document going of your ideas and your comments, because occasionally we do have little glitches with the online application forms. So I always say keep a Word document as well. Keep something on your own computer, just in case. Hopefully we won't have any of that this year. We had a little bit of a panic in March last year with some of the application forms, but fingers crossed it's all sorted. But yeah, so they're there from now. And then this last slide, so that's just my contact details. As Mark said, my link tree, the actual link to it is there, as well as the QR code. But basically that's where I've just kind of collated a bunch of things that I think are interesting and relevant specifically for adult ed. So I've got a variety of kind of YouTubes, a podcast, some leaflets. So whatever kind of media you like, whatever way you best absorb information, hopefully there's something there for you, because I know this stuff can be heavy. There can be quite a lot to it. So that's kind of how we've put this together to try and just, you know, make it a little bit easier and give you something that you can just listen to a 20-minute podcast instead of trying to read that 400-page document, you know, if that's what you need. So Noel, a really good question about the Cork ETB. And this is a question we get with a lot of the ETBs. So it really, you need to chat to your own management, because from our experience, every ETB manages this slightly differently. So you may just apply under the Cork overall branch. I know there is currently a Cork ETB project with us at the moment that Ger Brennan is looking after. But you may also, you know, chat to him, and he may be happy enough for you to set up your own OID for your own college as well. And we do have one, I think, with the, was it the Clonakilty, the West Cork Vet Centre, I think, has a project with us as well. So, you know, these things are possible. Other ETBs are super strict and everything goes through head office. So yeah, long answer, chat to Ger. Yeah.
I have a sneaky little ETB private group set up on EPALE as well. The kind of talk informally and kind of getting organised on there as well. So there was a lot of questions and interest from different ETBs. Yeah. So this is it. We have 10 minutes left, and I'm just going to throw this out to you guys. So use us while we're here. Anything that we can answer, anything we can be helpful with. Go on, Mark. I was going to say, do I have to raise my hand now? I just want to add in one thing, and I would say take note of this, because what I'd like to see is everyone who either isn't registered or hasn't been on in a while to just go log in or register, and to register your organisation. But this is the bit where you should grab a pen and paper, because once you have your OID, when you're registering your organisation, it will ask you for your OID and your accreditation code, and you probably won't have an accreditation code. Don't put in an OID or an accreditation code. Leave them both blank. Strictly speaking, you shouldn't be able to register your organisation. But if you leave both of those fields blank, your organisation will get registered.
And if that's too confusing, you email Mark later and he will sort you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little glitch with the system.
Yeah, we've seen.
I suppose that's kind of the message we want to end on is, you know, I think some people get a bit caught up in European funding and it sounds like this big thing that's over there, but genuinely it is mine and Mark's jobs to help you guys out. That's what we're here for. So if you have any questions about grants, about applications, any of the Erasmus Plus stuff, you come to me. If you have any questions about using EPALE, you come to Mark. And genuinely, we're always happy to hear those questions. I answer the phone a lot. People going, "Oh, Gemma, I'm sorry for calling," and I'm like, "No, like that is my job. Like, keep calling. That's what it's all about." And if I don't answer straight away, leave a voicemail and I'll get back to you. You know, we are only 2 people and we're running around the place, but you know, we generally try to get back within a couple of days. And running up to deadline times, we are checking those messages nonstop. So yeah. Rose, go ahead.
Sorry, I have another question. What was it again? Oh yeah, it's about leading projects, because I'm a bit confused about it. If I would invite other people to Ireland, for example, we would be the leading project and we would have to pay the other organizations. Isn't that the way it goes? That we get all the money and we send the money to them?
Is this for a partnership project, for a key action 2
something
project?
Like that. For
so
partnership.
If it's a key action 2 project, the money goes from Lergus, it goes to the lead partner, to the Irish partner, and then we will give you some templates and stuff. So you'd set up some kind of an agreement with your partners as to how much you're going to share with them and when you're going to pay them and all of those kind of things. So you can set up that as a kind of an internal agreement.
And are there any red lights we have to, you know, because we don't know the people who are on there. How do we know that they are, for example, trustworthy to go to or whatever? Is there some kind of a check going on in the beginning?
I guess, you know,
have there ever been bad stories? That's what I would like to know. Yeah,
I suppose it's just about having those chats with them in advance. You know, I would set up a call with them, check out their website, check out their kind of past participation, their experience, all that kind of stuff. Check them out if they are on Ipala, if they've been involved in Erasmus Plus projects before. You'll be able to see that on the Project Results platform. But yeah, I would say have a few calls and make sure that you're quite happy with the work that they're doing, and that you have similar objectives, that you're going to be able to achieve something together.
Yeah, it's nice to get involved with someone who's got little experience, you know, but I would say it's just kind of like checking references as well, kind of going and reading like kind of articles, and Jem put up the list there of kind of like past projects, going and looking and seeing who the partners were in those situations, you know, but yeah, look at what they've been up to, what they've been doing, and check references. If they tell you they've worked with someone, even if it's not another Irish kind of partner, feel free to drop an email to the other crowd and ask them how they found it went.
And as a new, because we're fairly new, we've been in existence since COVID, so it's quite new. And how do you get credibility yourself? I mean, we've been doing local projects, but nothing European yet. So is that a hamper, you think, or would that be?
I don't think it is at all.
No.
In fact, I think people want to engage with kind of like active groups, even if you're active like at a local or a national level. But that's where I think with Ipala, even though it's a European platform, you should be posting about your local achievements. And even like work in progress. And when people see that, they see that you're in the middle of doing something. That's a lot better than seeing that you did something 4 or 5 years ago. So and that's why I think it's important to kind of build that profile. Just kind of be you and be engaging, kind of be personable with people, and attend online events. You're going to start recognizing each other's faces very, very quickly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and we organise, so the likes of that event that's on in Athlone in February, there's a few other events like that will come up during the year, both in Ireland and internationally. And we always advertise those on our website. And they're great opportunities to go and meet people in person. You know, so they're separate to an Erasmus Plus project in that they're funded directly by us. But it just means that you can go and you can kind of spend a few days with a group of people and make those connections. And sometimes it can feel a bit more real than just sort of emailing somebody or doing a Zoom with somebody. I know, Maria, you attended one of them earlier in the year. I don't know if you have anything to say. I'll put you on the spot now.
I attended the one that took place in Dublin. And yeah, I would recommend everyone to apply for this type of opportunity, because you spent 3 days. They were very intense and very intensive days. You know, there is usually also like a central topic. In this case, we were using design thinking, the design thinking approach and methodology to as a basis to write projects. project applications. And, you know, besides learning something new, it was new for me. Some other people had some knowledge beforehand about design thinking, but you, as Gemma was saying, and Mark was saying himself, you get to see people face to face. So you spend a little time, you know, having lunch, having dinner, then you speak about your interests. You know if you think alike, okay, and it's that chemistry. I think that chemistry is also important, because at the end of the day, if you embark yourself in a project, you're going to spend some months, even years, you know, working with those partners. So it's a great opportunity. I would recommend it to everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria. See, it always sounds better coming from somebody else rather than just from me. But yeah, we will let you know. Those events will be advertised on Ipale and on the Lergus website. So whenever they come up, we try to promote them as quickly as we can. Sometimes they are a bit short notice for some of them, but we always try to push them.
That's where your Twitter comes in handy, Gemma. Sorry, I'm promoting you as much as I am a Pally, but like that's kind of how I'm literally in the office, and that's how I hear about some things first.
On my Twitter account,
On your, yeah.
As long as Twitter lasts, let's see if it lasts in 2024. I'm not convinced. Yeah. So listen, we'll wrap up there unless there's any last minute burning questions. But thank you so much for taking some time out of your Monday to join us today, and wishing you all a lovely break over the holidays, however you're spending it. And yeah, do come along to some of our events again in January and the run up to those February and March deadlines. And do keep in touch. Genuinely, we're happy to hear questions. We're happy to support. That's what we're here for. So yeah,